Hello everyone, welcome to JavaScript for Beginners. In this lesson, we are going to cover arrays. We are going to look at arrays and their properties and some array methods, including push, pop, splice, and concat. Now, let's look at the definition of arrays. Arrays are a list of values that can hold any data type. Arrays can store multiple values in a single variable. So think of arrays as a list of items. The items could be of different categories. Now, these values in the list can be accessed by index position. So simply put, the items in the list are having their special position number. So now let's look at the basic structure of arrays. We can create arrays by using the square bracket. So in this example, we have let array fruits, and then we create an array by using the square bracket. Then we have the items banana, orange, and apple. We can mix different data types in arrays. So for this example, we have an array called mixed array, which is comprised of a string, a number, and a boolean. So we have hello JavaScript, a number 5, and a boolean true. Now, how do we access the items in an array? So as I talked about, the items in arrays are having their special position number. So this starts from 0. So let's look at an example. In this example, we have created an array called fruits, which is having the items banana, orange, and apple. So how do we access the items in the array? We can access the items in the array by using the variable name and the square brackets and the index number. Here we have console.log fruits, which is the name of the array, and a square bracket and an index number of 0. We have console.log fruits squared brackets 1. This is the index number 1. And we have console.log fruits then square bracket 2. So now let's run this code. You can see the first element, which is having the index number 0, is the banana, followed by orange having the index number 1, apple having the index number 2. In JavaScript, arrays are mutable, which means that we can change the value of the items at any time. So we can update the values of an array using their index. So let's take a look at an example. So we have created an array called fruits, which is having the items banana, orange, and apple. So with this line, we are going to simply add the item pineapple in the first position. So we use the name of the array, which is fruits, into brackets, the index position, which is 0, and then we assign it to pineapple. So now let's run this code and see what we get. So here you can see the fruit array has been updated, where we have the first item being pineapple. So array comes with a built-in property called length. We can use length to access the number of items in an array. So let's take a look at this example. In this example, we have 3 arrays created. The first one is the fruits array, which consists of banana, orange, and apple. The second array, colors, which is having black, pink, and yellow. And the third array, empty array, which is having 0 items. So now we can use length to access the number of items from each array. So from here we have console.log fruits.length, and we have console.log colors.length and empty array.length. So let's run this code and see the results. You can see the first part, fruit.length, is having 3 items, which you can confirm over here. Colors.length is also having 3 items, which is black, pink, and yellow. We can confirm from here. And the last array, which is empty array, is having 0 items, which we can confirm from here. We can also use a special property called length -1 to access the last element. Let's take a look at this example. In this example, we have created a new variable called last element. Then we have used the name of the array, which is fruits squared brackets fruit.length -1. This expression right here, fruit.length -1, is going to return the index of the last element. Now we want to display the item which is having the index of 2. So we have console.log last element. So let's run this code. So you can see the results apple. Now let's look at some of the array methods. An array method is simply a function that performs actions on arrays. Some of the arrays are push, pop, shift, unshift, splice, and concat. So let's take a look at each of them. Let's look at push. This method is used to add an element or an item to the end of an array. So let's look at this example. In this example, we have our fruit array created having banana, orange, and apple. So we are going to use the push method to add the item grapes at the end of the list. So let's run this code. We did console.log fruits, and now we have banana, orange, apple, and grapes, with grapes having the last index, which is 3. The pop method is used to remove and return the last elements of an array. So let's take a look at this example. So we have this array having the items banana, orange, apple, and grapes. So we are going to use the pop method to remove the last elements from the list. So we have let pop underscore method equal to fruits.pop into brackets. So now the third line displays the item that was removed from the array. So we have console.log pop method, and then we show the final list of the array. So now let's run the code. So you can see we have grapes as the last item which was removed from the fruits array. And then the final list is having the items banana, orange, and apple. So now we have the shift method, which is opposite the pop method. So the shift removes and returns the first element. So let's take a look at this example. In this example, we create a new variable called shift method, and we use the variable name of the array fruits.shift. So we display the item that was removed from the list, which was the first item, and then we display the final list. So let's run the code and see what we get. So you can see the shift method returned the item banana, which was the first element or the first item in the fruits array. And then the final list, we have orange, apple, and grapes. So this method concat is simply used to join arrays together. Let's take a look at this example. In this example, we have two arrays created. We have num underscore array1, which is having the items 1, 2, 3, and the second array num underscore array2, which is having the items 4, 5, 6. So now how do you combine these two arrays? We created a new variable called combine, which is going to store the results of this array. So we type num underscore array1 dot concat, and then we input the variable name of the next array, num underscore array2. Let's run this code and see what we get. So here we have used console.log to display the results from combined array. So now we have the items 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. A two-dimensional array is simply an array that organizes several arrays into rows and columns. So let's take a look at how to create 2D arrays. In this example, we have 3 arrays created, row 1, row 2, and row 3. So how do we create a 2D array? Now we create a variable called grid, and in the square brackets, we use the names of the 3 arrays, separated by comma. So let's run this code and see what we get. So here, we have 2D array created with row 1 as the first item, row 2 as the second item, and row 3 as the third item. Now let's move on to the second method of creating 2D arrays. We can simply create a 2D array by using the sub-arrays as items themselves in the larger array. So here, we create a new variable called grid2, and in the square brackets, we have these arrays as the items. So now let's run this code and see what we are going to get. In the console, we have a 2D array created with these 3 items as the sub-arrays.